Don't forget where we came from.
So I just came back from seeing Guardians of the Galaxy, and I've got to say, I was actually surprised. Surprised at how much I actually loved this movie. I don't know what's going on, because apparently there are a lot of people that are giving mixed reviews about it. Some people really hated it. There are other people that really liked it, and there are people in between that said it's the best movie, but that's not really saying much. So I'm gonna delve into what the movie felt like for me. What is my honest review of the movie? Are there bad things about it? I'm pretty sure, but I gotta tell you, with all honesty, the good for the movie kind of overshadowed the bad for me. And that's something that I live by. If there is more good about the movie than there are flaws, then I count that as a success.
Pete, I'm done running.
Now, firstly, the reason why I think I absolutely enjoyed this movie is because I didn't really expect anything other than it being a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I expected there to be action and comedy, and for there to be an almost perfect balance of the two. After all, this is a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. This is the movie that a lot of people kind of blame or give credit for, the whole Marvel comedic timing, everything must be funny sort of aura that we now have in the new modern versions of the Marvel movies. However, Guardians of the Galaxy, outside of Iron Man with Tony Stark, has always been comedic and lighthearted. There were some pretty emotional scenes in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and what I absolutely love about the emotional scenes is that there can still be an air of comedy about it when you go back and look at it. But comedy is not the central focus of those emotional scenes as they're happening. When Peter Quill is grieving over his mother, there's no laugh track expected to be added onto that scene. Looking at the way Guardians of the Galaxy employs comedy to lighten the mood versus how every other Marvel movie does it.
Come on, Drax. Seriously, dude? No!
You can see that there's a night and day difference. Regarding the humus material in this Guardians of the Galaxy film, I really don't see a problem with it. I can see how people are probably tired. The constant comedy, especially coming off the putrid trails of something like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I can understand how they're probably sick of seeing it. However, I did go into this movie expecting that it was going to have that kind of humor because that's always what Guardians of the Galaxy has been. I never once got the impression that the humor was out of place, that they were trying to do too much, or that I had to stop my cry fest in the middle of watching a scene to feel pressured to laugh or annoyed that the writers wanted me to. I genuinely believe James Gunn was fine with the way he carried out this whole thing with the comedic effect stuff, despite what people have said. Might you find it slightly off-putting when a scenario that should have been emotionally charged is suddenly replaced with one that is more humorous thereafter? Yes, I agree that it does occur a few times in the film, but I do value the fact, the very important fact, that they are still separate scenes. You have a sad scene, and you have happy scene or normal scene. And in the majority of recent Marvel films that you see, there will be a really moving scene that will be included, right? For instance, in the movie Thor Ragnarok, right? While Thor and all the Asgardian citizens are literally witnessing the destruction of their home, the writers thought it'd be a fantastic idea to break the tension by having Korg crack a joke.
The damage is not too bad. As long as the foundations are still strong, we can rebuild this place. It will become a haven for all peoples and aliens of the universe.
So they're trying to make a joke about Thor's home being demolished within the scene itself, which I think is completely out of place and unsuitable given the grief of Asgard's destruction. And the messed up part of it is that the joke keeps going on. You have Korg interject with his stupid quips, and then it continues.
It will become a haven for all peoples and aliens of the universe. Now those foundations are gone. Sorry.
See what I mean? It completely undermines the seriousness and the sadness of the scene. Now it's just, oh, it's funny. The people are sad. Are we supposed to go back to being sad after you just made a very inappropriate joke? And surely Korg didn't mean for it to be that way, but you know and you can tell that's the way the writers intended it to be, which is honestly very off-putting. The fact that they made Thor the comedic relief in his own movies and the other side characters completely degrade and outshine him is a clear copy and paste from Guardians of the Galaxy with Peter Quill. Peter Quill is a badass and Thor is Thor. But the writers and creators' lack of common sense is demonstrated by their attempt to convert every other male character into a jester similar to what they did with Thor because they believe that's what audiences like as a result of seeing it in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
the Grand Master.
I get it. They think that because Guardians of the Galaxy does well and people seem to respond well to that, they need to do exactly the same thing that they're doing. For me, that's not a creative decision. That's honestly sounds like a business decision because that's the same thing that corporations do. Corporations will say, let's copy and paste exactly what our opponent is doing and try to compete with them instead of taking a risk and making up our own like we originally used to in years gone by so that we can be the ones supplying this only thing. And so now there's this inundation with comedy in the MCU, which is ostracizing a lot of people because it's just so overdone. It's similar to when someone tells a joke and everyone laughs at it, and then the joke teller discovers that everyone is laughing and says, oh my goodness, they're laughing. Let me keep telling the same joke over and over again. At which point the joke stops being funny. Guardians of the Galaxy seems to be what every other Marvel movie post Guardians of the Galaxy is trying to do, even when it's not applicable. And I don't know who they have writing the jokes or the comedic scenes, but in most of these movies, they probably need to fire those people, or they honestly need to seriously brush up on what they're doing because clearly they're no James Gunn. You almost believe that James is British with how funny he is, and that's not just at Americans or anybody else, but more of a compliment to British people. British people definitely know sarcasm and comedy because their lives are just so dismal. That's not me, that's what they say. People shouldn't attempt to replicate comedy if they're not comedians. You can't replicate James Gunn if you don't know how to actually be funny, which is what a lot of Marvel, or at least modern Marvel movies, fail at. And this movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, actually made me laugh, genuinely and heartily. So with that out of the way, that's one of the first things I had to bring up because it's one of the things I've noticed people carping about. Next thing I have to bring up is the action. There's definitely a lot of action in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but I wouldn't say it's any better than the action we've already seen in most movies and in most Marvel films anyway. It seems to just fall in line with the rest of the movies. So the action is good, although at times some of the scenes close up can be a little bit jarring because you can't see what's going on. For instance, there's a scene where Rocket is piloting a ship that comes under attack and the camera shakes wildly, making it challenging to follow the action. However, there is one particular scene where the camera slows down, allowing the viewer to appreciate the intricate choreography and pan along with the characters. In this instance, the action is exceptionally well coordinated and it feels as though the viewer is right there with the characters experiencing the scene firsthand without it looking like whoever is holding the camera is having a freaking seizure. So the action is fine. It's fine. One thing I can't stand though, I did notice throughout the movie is how when people fall, they don't feel like they're really falling, or you have like a few people who fall on their heads and break their necks and then they're just fine after that, which is like, how? I'm guessing that part's supposed to be for comedic effect, but I don't get how it's funny. Like, it's funny the first time, but then they do it like one more or two times, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, the character, is he dead? Oh no, they're fine. Let's just completely ignore the fact that they dropped on their head, visibly broke their neck, and you even added the very loud sound effect for that, but nothing is addressed after that. No headache, no neck ache, no nothing. Everyone is just completely fine. So yeah, is it the best action choreography I've seen in my life? Of course not, but does it fit with the Guardians of the Galaxy presentation? Yes, it does. It's a typical Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And one thing I must say and credit is that there is genuine color in this film, and you can see what the hell is going on. I'm not sure what it is about Phase 5 movies and Disney films in general, but the color saturation has just bitten the dust with most of these movies. I don't know why that is, and you can hear me complaining about it in my Peter Pan review, or rather the imposter Peter Pan. So even though you do get a little bit of that desaturation with Guardians of the Galaxy, there's just such brightness and vibrancy. It's not to the extent that the other movies have. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was vibrant and colorful as movies should be, so you can determine what the hell is going on. I mean, that should be a bare minimum, so I don't even know why this should be something I'm giving credit to the creators for. Now, the next thing I want to get into is a story. Oh my god, maybe it's just me because I'm very sensitive, but I cried about 5 times throughout this movie. I'm also an animal lover, so maybe there's a certain parts of it that touched me in a special way that only animal lovers get. And I don't mean people who just like animals, I mean people like me who have dogs and call them our children because we're freaking weird. But I absolutely enjoyed the story. I wasn't sure what the story was going to entail, but I definitely knew that it was going to center around Rocket because he was heavily featured in the trailer. So I knew it was going to be about him, but I didn't know exactly in what capacity. I really was floored because, you know, we got his backstory, and I love how they executed his backstory and the story surrounding the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It might not be a lot of people's cup of tea, but for me it definitely worked because we had to understand what we were fighting for, what they were fighting for, and so they had to give us that. More than ever, it really helped me to appreciate Rocket, and it also helped me appreciate the other characters. It's one thing I have to say about this movie, and it's that the theme is family.
Family. But what's real is family.
I know it's hilarious being that Vin Diesel is one of the voice actors here, but that's a heavy theme, and there are only little parts of it that do tie in with the Christmas special. The Christmas special for Guardians of the Galaxy was amazing, and I would say that you probably should watch that before watching this. Now, I will give a little bit of leeway for them tying the Christmas special in with the main movie, because the Christmas special itself was kind of a movie and still Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not like they made it into something called WandaVision and put it behind some paywall on Disney Plus when you didn't even realize it was tied into the MCU. And the way it ties in does not necessarily make or break your experience, except for one extremely bizarre detail that will likely leave you perplexed if you haven't watched the Christmas special. Still doesn't make or break the experience in totality, but that one little detail is gonna have you wonder what the hell is going on and what do they mean by that. I know people complain about the story, and I completely understand where they're coming from, but the story for me was very linear and it's tied up very neatly. Very bluntly put, the story is about Rocket. And near the end of the movie, you're gonna understand probably why this is, but then again, Rocket is one of the largest on-screen characters, probably larger than life characters, but yet it's still about Peter Quill, but it's Rocket's story. But it's also Peter Quill's story because of Rocket and Nebula's and Gamora's and Peter's and Gamora's. The story was honestly so emotional. There are so many moving pieces, but yet they all fit together neatly in this beautiful pop-up puzzle where the foundation of it is supported by all of these characters. I thought it was absolutely beautiful and heart-wrenching. This movie made me go through so many freaking emotions. Sadness, anger, betrayal, sympathy, empathy, excitement, joy, victory. I mean, James Gunn really knows how to pull at the heartstrings. He makes you care about the characters and you're concerned whenever something happens to them.
We have been running.
One complaint that people have made was that it feels like none of the characters are ever in any real danger. I mean, I wouldn't go that far, although I do see where they're coming from, but for Guardians of the Galaxy, that's the same as saying, well, I never feel like any of the Land Before Time characters are in any real danger. Now, granted, the Land Before Time, or at least the later movies, really overblow this to the point where it's annoying, where they don't even bother trying to trick you into thinking they are. But in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, especially for one particular character, you are concerned about that character, and at several points, the movie, for several of the characters, I really do think something awful is going to happen, and something does. Some people complain about the music also in this movie, but I don't see what they were complaining about, because if you've seen the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies, you know that's a big theme of these movies. The music. Also, it's a big deal because of the character Peter Quill. If you don't remember why, then maybe you need to rewatch the movies. So, no, that part of it did not feel misplaced at all to me. As for the ending, I think it was perfect. It had one of those endings that just kept going on and on after you thought it was already over, but they basically tie up all the characters and then they showcase that it's not all really over if you don't want it to be. But as far as this movie is concerned, it could end like that and be completely fine. It feels like a tall tale that's been told over many years has finally come to a close. I'm completely fine with it. I left the movie theater smiling and wiping my tears that I shed from sadness and from joy. Groot though, Groot, swole Groot. You know what I mean? Damn, had me all confused. I'm kidding.
Oh no, she ain't.
I actually left the theater thinking about the movie and still feeling the effects of the very strong emotions I experienced during the movie. Is it the kind of movie that only kids would enjoy? All kids did enjoy themselves. A lot of adults did as well. I mean, all the kids were laughing, but the adults were also laughing, as far as I could tell in the theater. And I wouldn't say that this Marvel movie is a kids movie. I'm sick and tired of people trying to make an excuse for how bad a movie is by saying it's a kids movie, as if kids don't deserve quality content. Most of the movies that I watched when I was little still hold up today and are a lot darker than the freaking cocoa melon shit that people are sitting their kids in front of to watch that's turning their brain into soup.
Dance when the music plays.
Every single one of those kids movies had new meaning and really dawned on me what their whole message was when I got older. They had very adult themes that I could enjoy as a kid, but could also appreciate as an adult. Wait a minute, what the hell is this? Guardians of the Galaxy feels like that type of movie. I definitely want to own this movie, and I never felt this way about any of the Guardians of the Galaxies or the other movies that I saw or with them in it, and I thought they were good movies as well. The way they portrayed the Guardians of the Galaxy in Thor: Love and Thunder just felt a little bit off, and I mean, it still felt like them, but maybe for the overall movie, you can tell the difference in quality when compared to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. People are saying that this is the weakest Guardians of the Galaxy movie. For me personally, I feel the complete opposite. I feel like it's the strongest, or at least it's on par with the previous movies. Maybe it's because it's been a while since I've seen the previous movies, but I definitely think it's all the way up there with them. I personally would rate this Guardians of the Galaxy maybe an 85 to 90 out of 100. I don't really look at Rotten Tomatoes to that degree. I mean, I do just to be curious, but I no longer trust them after what they did with Captain Marvel and how they gaslit the fans by saying that they were review bombing the movie, even though people were literally leaving their honest reviews of why they didn't like it. Or merely reviews like mine that got purged from the review site because I said it wasn't that exciting. I mean, it was okay, but the character was unlikable, and certain things like Nick Fury's lead up with the cat just seemed to be wasted on that scene. And because I wasn't singing its praises, my review got pushed along with other legitimate reviews on there that weren't just sucking the movie schlong. And since Rotten Tomatoes can no longer be trusted because they've been caught also altering reviews or buying copy and pasted positive reviews, I now mostly use Metacritic, which in the future they're probably going to try and buy off too as well. But it always seems like Metacritic has a more accurate response of how the audience feels. And the movie originally was rated 6.8 out of 10 or 68 out of 100, while the previous Guardians of the Galaxy movies were rated between 78 and 90 out of 100. I definitely believe this Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 deserves a higher rating than 68. There are a few reviews that I also saw on the site that gave the movie a 0, which I think is very unfair because when you read those reviews, like this one, they're not saying that they absolutely hated it or that the entirety of the movie was bad. They're literally saying there are things that were positive about it and things that they mostly hated about it. So as this review reads, I'll start with the positive. It's better than everything in Phase 4. As far as the negatives, nearly every aspect of the film. Nearly every aspect of the film. Not every aspect of the film, nearly every aspect of the film. Which means there is positivity reserved for parts of the film. Rocket's plot is good. The villain is good. Everything else is terrible. Why did you give it a 0 then? Wouldn't it be better to give it something between a 2 to 5 out of 10 rather than just a straight 0? It's very disingenuous if you honestly hate the movie and you list out everything you hated about it and you give it a 0 because you personally just could not find anything positive about it. It didn't appeal to you in any way possible, that's fine. But please don't leave reviews with a 0 out of 10, but then claim that there were things that were okay about the movie. It's really annoying, and it's just as bad as people leaving positive reviews about a movie they know doesn't deserve a 10 out of 10, like Peter Pan and Wendy. Unless, of course, you genuinely feel that way. Anyway, all in all, I think the movie was amazing. There were flaws about it, sure. And they do a bit of scene jumping around that can become a little bit tiring to some people who are watching. But for me personally, again, it kind of falls in line with Guardians of the Galaxy in the way it puts it together. I understand some people probably will have an issue with the story because they're expecting it to be some big boss or something else that they have to deal with, but it kind of is. There is a driving force behind that. But yeah, the theme is more so family and friendship, so that might turn off some people. It's not really about saving the world, even though they kind of do that as a side quest, sort of. That's not the main theme. It's what you're willing to do to sacrifice for each other. I do understand that a lot of people are having Marvel fatigue, and I completely get it, and I completely agree with them and their reasoning. However, I kind of feel like it's unfair to put Guardians of the Galaxy in the same boat as all the other Phase 5 movies because it's not the same thing. Guardians of the Galaxy is what those other bootleg movies are trying to be. James Gunn is the quality product that Taika Waititi is trying to be and never will be. Sorry, that was kind of mean. He might not, well, whatever. James Gunn is comedic writing, and timing is what everybody else tries to emulate. I know it sounds as though, I've been sucking the wet man's sweat off his back, but I'm being honest because everything I personally watched from him so far has been a way better quality than what I've seen from Marvel as of late. And maybe you can say or rebut, well, that's not saying much because, look at how low that Marvel said and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I completely get that, and you might be right. That's why I think DC could stand to gain something from James Gunn going over there. I hope Did I really just do... I'm gonna so leave that in. I was thinking Colonel Sanders, and then I ended up saying Colonel Sanders. Sorry. I hope that James Gunn, he can maintain that. And, yeah, I have faith. Maybe it's misplaced. Who knows? But I have faith that I've seen it confirmed also in this movie. I've loved everything James Gunn so far, including Brightburn. Really surprised me with that. But, yeah, the last point I would want to make. Whew! the villain. Oh my god, the villain was amazing. And after coming off the disappointment that was Kang, the freaking not conqueror, it was refreshing to see a villain that's actually a villain. You know, the one in Thor: Love and Thunder was amazing too, but I feel like he didn't even freaking belong in that movie. He was the only good thing about that movie. But the villain, what's his name? I don't even know his name. But he has all the motivations, but he's still evil. I just call him Stretch Face Man. He still has motivations. They were able to still make him have motivations, but he's still evil. Look, it can be done. You can make a villain realistic and have realistic motivations and understand where he's coming from while still making him evil. He doesn't have to be the sob story that you start feeling sorry for. Remember, everyone is a hero in their own story. The person who mowed down someone because he was driving a car drunk feels like he is the hero in a story, or he has to be, because as far as he's concerned, his wife is gonna have her baby and she was dying and so was the kid and he was trying to save her and the ambulance wouldn't get here on time because they would have to drive from the hospital and then make the trip back, which, you know, would only increase the time that it would take to save them if they can't save her in the ambulance while he'd only have to make one trip. That's probably the way he's reasoning it in his mind. However, it doesn't change the fact that he took the lives of 3 young people who were driving responsibly because he was inebriated. He still chose to go behind the wheel of a car while he knew he was inebriated, but from his point of view, his wife and unborn child were dying. So we don't get much of a backstory, or much of a backstory into the villain of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but he wants to make a perfect colony. You don't have to get his entire backstory to understand why. What is clear is that he mentions that he wants people to have intelligence and to not be bigots and hurt each other. He saw all the problems with Earth, and he did not want that, and he wanted to fix it. He wants to put everything into creating the perfect society so that people don't have to worry about violence anymore and just progress and have peace. Maybe at some point in his life, his parents were hurt as a result, or maybe he's just sick of the way humans always hurt each other. I don't know. I'm guessing he's based on a comic book character, but I don't know anything about that comic book character, so I don't know. However, the way he goes about it is all wrong, and while you can appreciate his genius, you can also see that he's a massive piece of shit. This actor did such an amazing job with playing his villain role. I was so taken aback and impressed. I mean, I hated him so much that when the ending came and a certain thing happened at some point, I was cheering. I was like, yes! I sincerely hope the guy who played him gets more work if he doesn't already have, like, I don't know who he is, but you can tell he poured his entire heart and soul and man juice into this role. I don't even know who he is. I am so sorry if he's someone already popular, but he really freaking killed it. The writing was off the charts here. Anyway, in my opinion, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a great conclusion to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and I am so sorry if there were people who genuinely hated it. I can understand where everyone's coming from, but I do feel bad because I would have hoped that people would feel the same way I feel. I'd be fine if they ended it here, and if they decide to try and come up with another Guardians of the Galaxy movie when they see this one does well after James Gunn is gone, I'm gonna be very sad because I know that they're gonna trash it up. I mean, if people thought that this was trash, that's gonna be even freaking worse. If James Gunn is not attached to the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have any faith in it whatsoever. I kind of just want to leave it the way it is, which is rich with quality. It feels like an amazing movie, which is very rare these days, and I don't want to take that feeling, you know, and ruin it by watching something that is just, they're calling it Guardians of the Galaxy, but it obviously is only so in name. I was really impressed by this movie, but please be honest with me and tell me what you guys liked or did not like about this movie. When I made this video, I didn't look at anybody's reviews. I looked at some of the reviews online, mainly before I went to watch the movie, just to gauge what people were saying, but I never watched any of the video reviews to really go into all the details. I got the non-spoiler reviews, but I'm gonna honestly say it actually exceeded my expectations because I did not expect it to be as good as it was and as dark as it was. But that's just my honest opinions, maybe because I'm an animal person as well. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.